right, welcome to Dead Letter Omission, Season 2, and yeah, we're going to get right into it today. We have a special guest with Serpents Oath, and I'll let him introduce himself here in a second, and we got Jeremy, our producer and main man behind the sound and video. So, yeah, thanks for joining us, and I wasn't sure if I should call you by your band name, or why don't you introduce yourself, if that's okay?
That's a good idea. So, hello everybody. My name is Tes. I'm the vocalist for Serpents Oath. The longer name is Tes Oath, but Tes is a lot more handy.
Revenge
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate it. New album's great. What time is it right now in Belgium?
It's 11 p.m.
Oh, okay. All right. That's not too bad. We've been doing a lot more
That's not too
international.
bad.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot more international podcasts lately, so it's been some people have been nice enough to wake up at 6 in the morning, just to kind of accommodate us. So
Yeah.
I'm at least glad it's nighttime on a Saturday for you. So how's it been during the pandemic? What does Belgium look like?
Well, what does it look like here? Probably similar to most places. Certain establishments are closed down for business. So anything what they classify as contact professions. So tattoo parlors are closed, but also hairdressers and what have you. So that's all closed. If you go shopping, you can only go shopping by yourself. You're not allowed to go with multiple people. They've started vaccinating here as well, so that at least gives us a window or some hope that at some point we might be able to play live again if they get this in its grip. But for the rest, yeah, it's what they call a light lockdown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
here.
there's actually a curfew. So from midnight, you're not allowed on the streets anymore.
Wow. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been interesting getting different people from different countries just to see how they're locking down. Um, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Here, everything's been kind of willy-nilly, and I'm sure everybody's seen America on television over the last couple months at least. So
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
just kind of getting through that whole period. But yeah, no. As far as the band goes, are you guys doing anything? Are you writing remotely, electronically, or
We're
what's
indeed
going on?
we're indeed keeping busy, and actually with the album as well, it was already ready. We were all set to release it. Then the pandemic hit, and we said, okay, wait a bit more, wait a bit more, wait a bit more. And at some point, we said, okay, there's no point in waiting any longer because who knows what's going to come around the corner. So then we decided to together with the label to release it at the end of last year. 4th of December, because, well, yeah, who knows what's going to happen in a couple of months' time. So that was released, and then, yeah, what do? It's strange to release an album and not be able to promote it live. It's the weirdest feeling, like you will have heard from everybody that you've spoken to probably. But it's crazy because why do we basically write and record and release an album? Because the only goal is actually to go out and play it live. So if you've done all that and you can then not fulfill your goal, that's just that's a bit crap. Let's put it that way. But the good thing is we said, you know what, we can't control all of that. So let's focus on what we can control. So work has actually already started on album number 2.
And what label is that going to be on?
That's probably going to be on Soulseller Records again. We were really happy with how they've treated us. I mean, you guys might not have seen the actual vinyl, but if you look at that, the amount of freedom that they've given us with that is fantastic. And I mean, it's just maybe details, but for us, they're important. So if you look at the cover, normally you've got your A side and then your back side has all the boring stuff like a barcode and the label logo and the production number and what have you. And we spoke to the label. We said, you know what, we've actually got 2 fantastic covers and we want nothing to interfere with the artwork. So we just want the artwork on it, nothing else. And they agreed. So for a label to agree not to have their logo slapped on the back of the album, that's a big statement. Yeah. So they've been fantastic, and even with, I mean, the vinyl has some metallic foil printing on it. It comes with a special inner sleeve, a lyric sheet, and what have you. So for a debut album from a new band, these guys have been awesome. I mean, they obviously know what they're doing. They just re-released the 4 first albums of Gorgorov, and that's what they do obviously as well. And they were so satisfied with the launch that they immediately offered us a contract for album number 2. So there we go.
Oh, that's cool. And I was on the shop too. I was going to order the hoodie right before this, and it looked like what you had, the black and then the yellow splatter, and they were the same price. So hey, everything was reasonable, and the logos are great. The pin, the back patch, you got the sigil. No, I really like it.
Thank you.
Before this all happened, and you had the record coming out, what was the touring plans looking like? Were you going to hit the States, or did you have some label mates or other bands that we might know of that you're going to play with?
We had nothing planned stateside yet, because the first plan was to first do it locally, locally Europe, obviously, and promote it, and then see to probably jump on some tours that we're going to track over there. But pretty early on, it already seemed that things were going to be messed up, especially with playing in different continents. Because those were the first ones that got cancelled for a variety of reasons, actually. So that was clear that was not going to happen. And then first, they basically pushed everything for a year later. But now we've already seen that the first 6 months, everything that's been set there is already being pushed to next year again. So it's going to be tricky to get that going, because basically once it gets started, everything that we'll see is something that's already been planned a year and a half ago or something like that. So it will be interesting to see what opportunities we can hop on to make that happen. And we'd love to come over to the States and actually show you guys what we've got.
No, very cool. Looking at the album, and it looks like it's a 3-piece, but you're listed as vocals, and then you have guitar and drums. Do you have a touring bass player, or is it always just the 3 of you?
That is the core, basically, of Serpents Oath. When we came together, that's what the entity known as Serpents Oath was born from. We said, okay, we had the same vision, what did we wanted to do. So we basically then wrote and recorded the album. But now indeed we are looking for to extend that lineup. So we've got a full live lineup. And for that lineup, actually, for the full lineup, we actually are looking for 2 persons for each position, so that as a band we can always say yes to any opportunity that comes, no matter if somebody might be hindered. Then we've always got a backup plan to make it happen. So finding then the people with the same commitment might be a bit more challenging, but we've done quite a few auditions, and we've already found our live bass player, so that's fantastic. And I think on the guitar front, we're narrowing it down to 2 guys who are still up and running, doing it. So we'll be ready to make it happen. And that's a good thing. There's nothing else to be done. Rehearsing is something that we can still do, actually. So we make a point of that, to making sure that apart from writing new material, we basically rehearse every week to make sure that once live shows up and running again, boom, we get going.
Are the day jobs pretty flexible where it allows you to take any of those tours? So you being the singer, you have to be that guy. You're not as replaceable, at least from a, you know.
It's slightly more tricky for sure, but depending on who it is, indeed, what can we do? Do we have some replacements? So that's why we always look for the backup. For myself, I do work as a consultant, so that's the advantage of the pandemic. Everybody's used to doing meetings now via Zoom or what have you, Teams. So I no longer have to physically be in the room with them to have the meeting. So that actually has given me more flexibility going forward. So if I'm on tour, I can still do the meetings and then in the evening do the shows.
That'd be hilarious if you had to do the meeting in full corpse paint. Just
yes, it's clear that people that I work with on the professional front, they do not know the other side for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. So let's talk about the new album, if you don't mind. What were some of the there's the three of you that are the core. Do you have a history together, or was this kind of a newer iteration of friendship?
We do have a history together. I mean, me and the drummer have been making music off and on for, I would say, the last 20 years. Trying not to give away too much about how flipping old I am, but there you go. And with the guitar player, I mean, he is really experienced, played in a lot of bands, did a lot of tours. So we met him up during the touring scene a couple of times. But then about, I think 2 years ago, we got together. We realized that what we were looking for is the same thing. And we said, okay, then let's do something new. And that's how Serpents Oath was born. And indeed, so we do have some history together. And that core has been working on this album for the last 2 years to make it happen.
What were some of the bands that you guys agree on that you wanted to take influence from? That's okay to ask.
Yeah, of course. I think it's always a tricky one because I don't think that you consciously decide on, okay, we're going to take influence from that. But obviously, as metal fans ourselves, there's a vast history of bands that you like that will at some point probably influence you. If you look at it, we'll all have maybe a slightly different variance on the taste that we like. We probably all agree on Watain, for sure. And then there's lots of other stuff. But I think that musical history goes back quite a long time, even before black metal. So I think we actually agree on a lot of German thrash from back in the old days, be it Sodom, Destruction, Creator, all of that, because that's basically what we grew up with. And that's probably not directly influencing us, but there will be some bits in there probably that have an influence on that as well. But basically what we do is when we write material is just, does that not just sound good, but does it feel good to us? Does it really grab us by the back of our neck and pull us forward? If it does that, fantastic. That means that we'll also end up with songs that, I mean, we're all professionals, so we can jam everything you want with a certain riff. But if in the end of the day we go like, yeah, that's nice, but does it grab us? No, it goes in the bucket. And I think that's the only way you can really do something like that and try to be the gauge. You have to be the first gauge to see, okay, does it stand up to what we want to listen? Because I think you cannot write for a certain audience or something like that. There's no point in that. And I think people will always hear if you're doing a bit of, I call it playing metal by numbers. Yeah. Oh yeah, they always use that chord and that's the progression and this is the structure. I basically detest that. That's just my own personal opinion. But no, you've got to feel it. And luckily, as it's shown since release, that quite a few people have picked up on it. seem to like the vibe that we got there. So now we take it from there. And that will be the interesting bit for album number 2, because the first one is you're trying to create that bass of the sound of the band, but now we can start already at another level and do a lot more of what you've already created, because you can build upon that. So I'm really looking forward to the next chapter as well.
Yeah, I thought it was a very creative album, and Jeremy and I had the taxing because so many albums came out last year.
It's crazy, yeah.
And I know I brought my list down about like 413, and that was after filtering them and going through and through attrition and a lot of hours. I mean, you guys ended up on my top 10, and it was just
Thank you.
that your first single I went back to and then re-listened the whole album, but that first single takes you on a ride, and it did remind me of Black and Thrash. um so I can see the German influence. I heard a little like Destroyer 666, stuff like that, but the straightforwardness and the commandingness of that actually kind of had like an early Deicide vibe to it.
Yeah.
And kind of mixed with some of the early Relapse stuff, like the first couple of Morphous albums. And I definitely hear the, Attain and things like that. But it was cool. It wasn't typical, and the song ebb and flowed, and it was catchy as hell. So I appreciate it for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, we put a lot of work in it, and it's interesting to see. For example, the guitar players that are trying out at the moment. Once you really listen to it deeply, and they hear how many guitar parts was going on, you were like, "What the hell?" I said, "Yeah," and that was the other fantastic bit of working with Andy Klaassen in Stage One Studios. I mean, he's worked with Belphegor, Crisian, Legion of the Damned, you name it. I mean, and he's a professional. What he is fantastic at is really getting the best out of you. I mean, he's amazing. He'll make you work for it, yeah, because he's only satisfied with the best take ever. So you'll have to work your ass off, but it pays off. And the good thing is that whilst working on it, he really got into the songs as well. So he actually invested a lot of time to make sure that the album just sounded amazing. So it was great working with him, and to try and keep it, like you said, something fresh, something different, to surprise people.
Oh, it was cool. And then how did you hook up with Nestor Avalos?
Nestor, yeah, yes, indeed. I mean, what he's created there, he really got our vision, and from starting from the brief that we gave to what he then created. I mean, it's actually such an amazing piece of art, and you have, well, it could be like a medieval painting or something like that. It's amazing what he's done. But we know Astor for quite some time. I've worked together with him before. And from the very first time we worked together, there was a connection. There was a link that goes beyond music, beyond any art. There's just a connection there. His vision is very close to what we're doing as well. And he's an amazing guy to work with. And he puts in work. So when we got that art, and then we were working on it for the layout, for the vinyl and what have you, and the guy from the layout was looking at it, and he said, "Man, this piece of art has like over 100 layers." And said, "Yeah, Nestor works. It's not just something bashed together. He works for it." So it's amazing what he's done. He's a great guy. The interesting bit will be, okay, what you're going to do for album number 2. Because we just had that, and then, okay, how are you going to how are you going to top that? But we'll see. We've already spoken together. He's definitely up for the challenge. We really love what he does, what he's able to communicate through his art. So I think it's looking very likely that we'll do something with him again.
No, it really adds to the whole aesthetic. And what I liked about it is the lyrics and the whole concept is very clear. You got the kind of LaVeyan Satanism, some of the romantic beauty of what I was assuming would be like the Nephilim or fallen angels, and definitely by the cover, it
Yeah.
the angels didn't prevail.
For sure not. And that was the entire message for that cover. Basically, it shows the rebellion of Lucifer, the war in heaven, but this time he actually prevails. And for us, that is really symbolic of the victory of free will, because that was the entire matter around it. And that is what it symbolizes. Because if you look at the lyrics and the general concept, it goes definitely beyond that. I mean, it's a lot about transhumanism, and even to the fact, if you even go to rebellion, what the cover definitely depicts, but rebellion in such a way that nothing that what people see as a given you accept, and part of that is death, that you just don't accept it as a given, which is probably for 99% of people, that's where they drop off when we speak about that.
Yeah, and especially in the climate that we've been in, and everybody, I think when free will is something and transhumanism has been discussed more than ever, and I think we're really seeing the effects of control systems, and they can go south quick, and they can manipulate people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do, and it's just bad perception. And it all, and I know Jeremy and I talk about this quite a bit, but like the cultism and just the need to be a part of something where they'll even mold their own morals into an idealism that they don't necessarily agree with, but it's comforting. And I think the concept of free will and what I gathered from your lyrics and the overarching idea of all of that ecosystem of things is really breaking away from those things. Is there an ultimate goal that you'd like to get across to the listener? Is there something that, is there a message outside of that, or something that you would hope for as far as transhumanism goes, or?
Not necessarily hoping, and it's certainly not something for everybody, which is fair enough. And I'm not trying to convert anybody. And I think the basic premise is believe nothing, test everything. Because you basically have to walk your own path, see what works for you, but also you have to bring the commitment to do that. So if I speak about not accepting death, that's not just a philosophical question, sorry. It goes beyond that. There's a practical side to that. Yeah. And yes, it can be on various levels, but even on at what I call a daytime level, the intent is to not die. And that can be through life-preserving measures, which are already happening. There's actually a lot of science in that area as well, where they've used successful tests on the first cells that they can rejuvenate, because the biggest factor is aging, in death. And by the latest, after they discovered the disease progeria, and I don't know if you know it, but basically kids, by the time they get to 12, they're always like an 80-year-old. So when they saw that, hey, there's something that can make you age quicker, so there must be something that we can do to make you age at least slower. Or even, and that's then the goal, reverse that, so that you get young cells again. But failing that, there's actually a backup plan. And for myself, for example, I have a cryonics contract, which means that if I do die and I've not succeeded in my goal by that time, I will journey to the stateside anyway and be frozen. So it's you won't see it, but it's like a medical thing on there that says, "Don't go up this guy, please freeze him." Yeah.
And that's that you would have to be brought to America?
At the moment, there's only facilities in the US and in Russia. And I've got a contract with one of the two facilities in the US. There's no facility in Europe at the moment.
So how does that fit into your, what's your stance on, like, I know Black Mirror had that one episode, downloadable consciousness.
And your, for sure, your true identity is here. Yeah. Because a lot of time when people speak about the soul and they try to envision it somewhere here, no, it's all here. If you can transfer that to something else, fantastic. But plan A would definitely be, let's keep this with, this is your temple that you've got, and work with that. So that is definitely plan A, but at least keeping your identity is plan B. So that could be with indeed downloading your identity. And I think it was about 6 months ago, I attended a seminar on that, where basically said that computing power now has grown to that extent that it can actually happen. Where in the past they couldn't even fathom just the capability, the capacity of doing that, but now we can. So there's actually a lot going on in that field that people will never hear about if you don't investigate yourself, for sure. Yeah.
That's cool. You've been looking into that.
Really yeah. I mean, I'm very active in that. And that's only the day side. If you then talk about the more occult night side things, hey, your first goal is to not need your body for your identity. Yeah. And again, when I said 99% of people drop off after what I said there, this is 99.9. Because there's a lot of occult people out there that think they're occult just because they have some philosophy that they might follow, but they don't do anything practical with it. Yeah. So in order to do that, that's actually something you train. You don't just speak about.
Yeah. Like, I always look at it, and the way I envision it is that, the world, the universes are expanding quicker than your brain could possibly think. So you have this spirit, soul, which is, it has to go somewhere to populate those dimensions eventually. Like I don't, and I grew up in a Jehovah's Witness family, and it got me really into, start with Levan, Satanism, grow
Always a good
from
start.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, continuing to study throughout the years. But, that transcendence is really what I'm hopeful for.
And that's what you're trying to achieve. So if you look at it, just follow me a bit on this path. Yeah, bear with me. Mm-hmm. So if you would train to not need your body anymore, so your astral body could survive on itself, and you don't need your physical body, and that's what you're training towards. And there are quite a few people that are training on this. Yeah. an organization. You could imagine that through all of history, if people have trained for that, there will be some that will have succeeded. So one of the things is you contact them. You grew up in a Jehovah's Witness setting. Hey, in Belgium, I got the full Catholic do. And part of that is communion. What people don't realize anymore, that communion comes from communicate. So what you're trying to do is actually reach out and communicate and get in touch. That's the entire idea. And as I said, I mean, for most people, and I'm not trying to convert anybody.
They're just like ideas and concepts that make sense, you know.
And because it's so, for most, it's so far from what they feel comfortable with. Yeah. So if people say, we rebel or we're occult, who does something about that or with that?
Well, even here, right? NASA has been studying for years now astral projection and astral travel to talk to entities. So, I mean, it has some value in a more mainstream scientific platform somehow.
Yeah. Even more so in the 70s, actually. If you look at it, there was quite a lot of scientific research in that period. You could even find instructional videos on it from that period, which is interesting. But indeed, it's you should see it. It's something else. And I think if you look at it, parts of it you will already have encountered, because before astral projection, you've got some lucid dreaming, some stages before that. And I mean, a lot of people will have had some experience with that, where they noticed, hey, I'm actually dreaming. Or even when you basically fall back into your body, when you feel like a kick like that, you go, oh, what the hell was that? But people tend to ignore it because, and that's part of culture as well. Kids have no issues with that. They experience that, they're fully aware of that, but they always get told, no, that's humbug. So you grow up and ignore all of those experiences, which basically numbs you to that. So the first step is to get rid of that baggage that was on you and truly experience what you're seeing. Because even if you're in bed and you're sleeping, that's only part of you that's sleeping. Another part of your mind, what you call the instinctive mind, is always awake. And there's easy example of that. Because why would you wake up if there is a noise in the house? That's because that part is still active and it snaps you out. So it's really interesting once you dig deeper what is behind that. And it's the same with having a cryonics contract, for example. Most people will say, yeah, but you don't know if it will work. I said, no, I don't know if it will work, but I do know what the alternative is, which is rotting in the ground. It doesn't sound like a fantastic alternative to me. So basically, I'm on a plane. I know the plane is going to crash. There is a parachute there. I didn't pack the parachute. I don't know if it will work, but I'm making the decision to take that parachute and jump off that fucking crashing plane. If you want to sit on it and crash into the ground, be my guest. Because I know how that will end.
I couldn't hear what you said.
See, Siri agrees. But we know how that option ends. You know what? And I'm going for the other option and take my chances.
I have a feeling Jeremy are going to be making some phone calls. No, that's cool. And I don't think most people understand the symbolism behind, you know, what is generally called the black arts, and how that represents the, the anti Christ, or the opposite of the constraint and the chains, and just having all these ideas. And unfortunately, and again, I'm coming from a place of being an American, a transhuman transhumanism might take a while.
Yes.
But that concept is a very slow growing, hopefully, but it's going
Yeah.
to be, hopefully, those people that progress these ideas of enslavement don't do the cryogenic thing that you're talking about.
Indeed, let's get rid of those. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
come back and infect everything again over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. But the interesting bit, even in small parts, there's already transhumanism. Yeah. My partner works in a hospital in the cardio rehabilitation. Yeah. So when people have a heart attack, whatever, helps them with that. And there are certain patients there that basically, we always make fun of it, they carry their heart in a suitcase. What does that mean? Their own heart has already given up. And so they've got a mechanical heart, but it literally is in this suitcase that they carry with the tubes going in. And that shows you, basically, it's just something mechanic. So if you can replace that, more and more stuff can be replaced, and you don't no longer need that. So if you then have a mechanical one that can function forever, what the hell? So already stuff is happening that people don't want to see, what is already there. And well, yeah.
Yeah,
But it
and
can go beyond that, yeah. And what you said about black arts and symbolism as well, for us, it's an integral part of the band as well. And maybe good to build that bridge again, to that people see what's behind and behind something like that. So just if you look at the logo, for example, that you see here, Serpents Oath, yeah. So obviously it has the two serpents that form the S's of Serpents Oath, but the serpent itself stands for both the inner dragon, what you're trying to reach, the source that is within you, that is connected with others. And B, if you look at something simple as blood, or even further as DNA, look at the shape of the DNA. That is like a serpent. So it's actually the building block of life. Yeah? And that goes beyond that. So, and then it forms this here, which is basically opening or awakening of the third eye, which is smack in the middle of it. That's your goal, yeah? To find the connection with the inner dragon. And obviously that sets why in a triangle pointing down. If you look at, and I don't know how familiar with that, with the 4 elements, water, fire, yeah? And then you've got them all either, it's all triangle shaped in different poses. And that's a referral to that as well. So this was not just, what, we'll go to some logo black metal tube and hey, draw something. No, this is all a clear brief that these are the elements that need to be incorporated, because that's what it stands for us. Then it becomes really a symbol that represents us, and not just another illegible logo.
And then, is there any, because you got the 3 snakes on the sigil?
Yes.
Is there any different representation with the sigil that maybe isn't represented in the general logo? Or?
No, that's very astute of you, actually. The sigil is slightly different, and that is that it was born from the trio, just the 3 guys. So those are obviously the 3 serpents. The rest of the symbolism is pretty similar. If you look at it, the skull is in there as a representation of death, but not death as the destroyer of life, but death as transformation, something new. and that's what it stands for. And if you look at it as well, if you see the race behind it, that's not just some nice stripes that we wanted to incorporate in the sigil. It's actually the black sun shining from behind the skull.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got the hexagram on top, but I thought it was a desecration of the Trinity. That's
good move, but what we try to do is not to be anti something, but no, we stand for something. We don't identify ourselves by being against something. No, we've got our own vision. We don't need something else to identify us by, which doesn't mean there's a big part of rebellion in all of us.
right.
I think that's true for probably 90% of all metalheads.
Yeah. Opera metal.
maybe. Yeah. So that's where that stems from. So and obviously, might that be lost on quite a few people? Fair enough. It's important to us, and that's why we do it. And that's why it does differ. But then also that means if we then, for example, work together with Nestor, he totally understands what we're about. He lives his life according to the same principles, and which means then if you then work together, you get a truly unique piece of art. And I like all of the stuff that he does, but still what he did for us stands out, is just so strong. Because that's, I mean, I've known him for years, so he's very clear on our vision of things, and that's why he's been able to really transport it that well into his art as well. So there's always going to be a difference there.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Yeah. If you guys could keep that partnership, that'd be terrific. And I like that the whole aesthetic running through the cover art, the merchandising, the ideas, the lyrics. Thanks for explaining, your perspective. I appreciate it. I really do. As far as the band goes, keep us posted, for sure, and we'll keep putting stuff out to do. We can do our part. We make that commitment to every band that we respect and have on. As far as just one more chance for everyone to know, if you want to maybe kind of go through where to find the guys' music, some of the different options there.
Where they find our music, you said?
Well, maybe your site.
Indeed. So the site is pretty easy. That's serpentsoath.com. Yeah. Obviously, we're on Facebook and Instagram as well. For people that first want to just have a listen to it, obviously that can be some podcast arrows or some radio station, but you can also find the full stream of the CD on YouTube via Black Metal Promotion. You'll find it there as well. So if people just want to test it out, hey, have a look at that. We obviously have 3 clips out as well for 3 songs, which is Speaking in Tongues, Leviathan Speaks, and Malediction, that people can have a look at as well. And obviously, if you want to support us, on serpentsoath.com, there's a shop site as well where you can buy our stuff, along with some nifty merch.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks again for talking to us.
Thank you, guys. Indeed.
Finally tour, come to the U.S. We're at a area, so we can hit you up at both Milwaukee and Chicago, I'm sure. So,
excellent.
I'll be following close, but thanks a lot, man. Have a good one.
Thank you very much, guys. Indeed, thanks for having me on and listening to my ramblings. Maybe a bit much to take in, but I hope that's okay. And yeah, for everybody, I would say just check it out. Let the music do all the talking, and then we might see each other on stage again.
Sounds good, man. Thanks again.
Excellent.
To everybody else, Thank you so much for tuning in to Dead Letter Missions. Go check out Serpents Oath at serpentsoath.com, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.